Sure, you can make a great whiskey and you could try to sell it once. But how do you get somebody to come back and buy another one? I don't want to talk about how much whiskey I just got on my blazer.
Hey, thank you for joining us for your dose of Weekly Whiskey with John and Jay.
Weekly Whiskey is made on Mackie. If you'd like to know a little bit more about the Mackie products that we're using here in the studio, check out mackie.com/whiskey.
Rock on. Well, thank you, Mackie. We love having them as a partner. They make us sound great. I like to think that we look great. So let's go ahead and dive on into it. What do we have in store tonight, John?
Well, I think there's a lot of times that we got a little bit caught up with what you should get or what you could get. And maybe something that could be fun is to talk about what you can't get and what you could use to substitute that same exact product with. So one of the things is pretty well sought is Willett Family Estate Rye. Come on.
I mean,
everybody wants some of this, right?
Yeah, definitely. We hear about Willett Family Estate all the time, mostly how people can't find it, how it's too expensive, it's overpriced, it's in the glass case, it's behind the counter, you need to be in the lottery. Into that, I say just buy Wilderness Trail instead. We've got Wilderness Trail, similar age, $55 to $60 or so. It's going to hit around 60% if you're getting a single barrel selection. I think that's the way to go as far as rye whiskey goes.
Man, these things are absolutely money. We had Dr. Pat from Wilderness Trail on for an episode of Weekly Whiskey. And aside from being an absolute encyclopedia of fermentation, distillation, and whiskey knowledge, Dr. Pat just had really poignant points on how to make a good product, how to make something delicious, but also how to continue getting everybody interested in the format. And I think that overall, that's something that's really important. Like, sure, you can make a great whiskey and you could try to sell it once. But how do you get somebody to come back and buy another one? Jay, what's your thoughts on this?
So I think it's interesting. People kind of think that Wilderness Trail is a small craft whiskey kind of in the backwoods of Kentucky. I mean, they are. Danville's not close to anything. But they're doing about 100,000 barrels a year. I believe it, or was it 10,000?
Did you say 100,000?
Sorry, 10,000 barrels. I mean, they have done a gargantuan amount of whiskey for, the small local craft place down the road. And I mostly think it's just because people don't know about them. If you haven't seen this bottle, it's kind of tough because it's even hard to find here in Wisconsin, but great quality, great price. It's all sweet mash. They're talking, this one's pot still. They have column still as well. There's a lot going on, especially, once you start tasting.
So if we could do we can't do a deep dive. We had Dr. Pat on for an episode for that. Let's do like a shallow dive into what Wilderness Trail is doing. I mean, they're not just like making their own gear and putting it into a bottle and shipping it out. I mean, they're making rye whiskey for a lot of folks, correct?
Yeah, they're doing contract. They're doing their own, it's actually kind of hard to get Wilderness Trail's own single barrels now because they're selling so much of it on contract to places like IJW. So they have a lot going on. They're doing column still, they're doing pot still, they're doing bourbon, wheated bourbon, a bunch of other stuff. They're doing some rye, and they're letting a lot of it go out the door.
That's a good point, actually. So Jay and I select single barrels for the Reddit community of our bourbon, which is, I don't know if you guys have heard about this, fairly large, right? We're talking in the neighborhood of, this bottle in particular, in the neighborhood of 200,000 folks. By the time this airs, maybe just a hair over 200,000 people, right? A barrel of bourbon, if we're lucky, should yield in the neighborhood of 200 bottles. Give or take a few. There are plenty of times where it's way less, and a few times where it's a little more. So we're talking a lot of folks for a little bit of whiskey. Now, what we're really talking about here is how do we get the right amount of whiskey into the right amount of hands, which is a really difficult topic. And Wilderness Trail is sort of doing the same thing, but on a massive scale, right? Like they're talking about how do we make all of this delicious whiskey and get it to other brands so they can put it into a bottle and get it on the shelf and get folks to buy it. And the fact that they're able to do this while still maintaining their own program, I think is kind of cool. Jay?
Yeah, I mean, they're producing a ton of whiskey. They're producing a ton of whiskey every day. They're saving some of it back. I was there to help pick the Derby barrels for this year. Lots of good stuff out in the warehouses. Probably should be holding a little bit more, but they have a long-term plan. Pat and Shane, really smart guys. I think they're the future. I think if you like Willett, if you love the character, that big kind of oily rye character, this is gonna be a perfect stand-in. And the best part is that you can find this. You can go out, you can hunt down a wilderness trail. Hell, if you still want some of our bourbon, there's a little bit left. Easy peasy, comes online. But a lot of places are starting to carry Wilderness Trail, and Willett's only going to get more hyped, especially as things like the Willett Blackened collaboration, that masterclass of whiskey, or masters of whiskey, icons of whiskey, whatever. The Blackened and Willett collaboration is going to bring even more hype to Willett. So focus on something you can get. And honestly, I like this better most days. I like Wilderness Trail. Has a lot more character, a lot more oak. For 4 years, I think it drinks a lot better. Big brown sugar, big chewy molasses, big spice, orange rind notes. I love it. I think it's a great stand-in.
Outstanding. So let's come back around real quick. If you can't find Willett, and let's say you're a huge Willett nerd, you love everything they produce, you love that maraschino note, which is something that personally kind of resonates in my realm of, I don't know, like the things that I kind of dig. If you can't find that, do you find something else, or do you only find this? What sort of brings the Willett Family Estate Rye fan into this profile flavor-wise?
Certainly. So I really think this comes down to that big oily mouthfeel. That's something that people really like about Willett. It tastes big, it's chewy, it's kind of it's full-bodied for being 4 years old, which is kind of, Willett was a place that a lot of people looked at. They sourced stuff for a long time. People were either bullish or bearish on their own distillate coming out and being worthwhile. 4 years is the point that people believe that it's good enough to go. And it's finally outrunning that youth. For that, I say Wilderness Trail. If you wanted, honestly, I think this tastes like an older Willett. If you wonder what Willett's Rye is going to taste like at 5 or 6 years, I think that Wilderness Trail is going to be a really good pinpoint to that. It's got some of those fruit notes, got those big, oily, kind of chewy notes, nice tannin influence, and there's a little bit of fruit, a little bit of cherry, a little bit of orange, nice peppery backbone. I would call, Willett Jr. is, kind of as it stacks up. Wilderness Trail, I think, tastes older. So if you can't find 4 year, you wonder what 5 and 6 year, I think that Wilderness Trail is kind of the path finding that flavor profile that Willett nerds like.
I dig it. So I want to go ahead and thank everybody for coming here to catch your dose of weekly whiskey with John and Jay. And if you'd like to be part of our community, support what we're doing, gain access to some inside information in the whiskey world, you can do all of this by heading to patreon.com/thewhiskeynet. And also don't forget to check out our studio sponsor on Instagram at Mackie Gear or at Mackie.com.
They make us sound great. We love their interfaces. I'm rocking the cans tonight here. They are the reason that Weekly Whiskey sounds the way it does. If you're looking for more from John, you can find him at thebourbonfinder.com. And if you're looking for more from me, I'm over at whiskeyraiders.com. So thanks for joining us, and cheers, y'all.